my parents and I actually made an agreement before I went to college of they really wanted to make sure I was like taking advantage of all the opportunities available to me and like really branching out. So we actually made a deal of like if I ever felt homesick or like I wanted to see them or something like that, that they would come visit me so I wouldn't be going home. And that helped me personally with like the transition of like being at home all the time to campus. We also talked a lot about like in terms of communication, whereas like with college schedules it gets really really busy sometimes. So we made an agreement of like if I wanted to reach out that I would have to like make a call just so like they wouldn't be like interrupting like my study schedule or like if I was like at an event it wouldn't be like interrupting that. So like in terms of like what you can do to help your student, just kind of like establish like not only like boundaries of like okay this is how we should communicate, but also just like making sure that your student knows like that you support them or like you're there for them in like any capacity. So that was like my experience personally, and I found it really helpful to like not only stay like involved with my family life but also like to get really involved in campus and like feel like I was a college student.
Yeah, something that's really important is, your student is a college student now and they're not in high school anymore. Your student's an adult. And so something that I struggled with a little bit with my parents in the beginning was I do live in Austin, and so I was going home quite a bit. And just, I agree, like set boundaries, um, you don't necessarily need to know every single grade that your student is getting on their exams and their assignments. So, definitely just they're an adult, they're out on their own, they're leaving the nest, and recognizing that they have their own space and they have their own lives now.
I have a lot of younger siblings. My parents are really busy, but knowing that like I could call them and they would like answer when I called, like if I ever needed them, was like a really big thing for me. Like I really lean on my parents and my grandparents for support while I'm at UT. So like if I like did bad on a test, which has happened, like, or I was like crying in like a bathroom or something, I knew I could like call my parents whenever, and like as long as they weren't like, like in a super important business meeting, which my dad would probably still step out of, like they would answer and like talk with me and like not like trivialize what I was going through, if that makes sense. So like just making sure that like you're there as a support network for your student and you're not necessarily trying to solve all of their problems. So I think it's really important for people in college to like be going through and like learning from their experiences. Or for me, it's been really important, but like that you're there so they know that they have people they can lean on for advice and stuff, but like not like coming up with a solution. A lot of students really need someone who's like there, like, oh, I can call my mom and be like, oh, I'm so sad about this exam. And my mom will be like, have you checked out these resources? But she won't be like, oh, you need to go check out these resources. So like that's kind of where my parents and I are. Like I know I can call them whenever I need them and they won't be judging me or like doing anything like that. They'll just be there to like either calm me down or be like, hey, have you looked at that? And then let me figure it out from there.
I think an important like side effect of what everyone's saying is that you develop a stronger sense of ownership and identity with the university when you set these boundaries and kind of like reevaluate your, not relationship necessarily, but like I guess just the whole boundary thing. Because my first year I didn't go home at all, but that was, I mean, maybe like 2 or 3 times, like very little. And but I developed a really strong sense of community on campus and became very like self-reliant, and I think that's been important. And then like since then, my last few years I've been more involved with my family and going home more, but I think it was important to establish or like that break almost for the ownership of being at UT and being a college student and everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everyone is saying. And I think that my parents, in my specific case, they never asked me about my grades, even in middle school or high school. I was really self-motivated, but I have some friends whose parents seem to have a really hard time detaching from their child's success academically. And so I think that my advice would be to be more supportive and inquisitive about how your child is doing in terms of their mental health and if they're feeling connected, than how they're doing academically. And if they come, you know, crying like, oh, I failed this test, remind them that like I had a 4.0 in high school. Well, an unweighted 4.0. I was doing the most, and then I came to college and I made a C on my first calc test, and that was really hard for me. So just help give them some perspective, you know, impart all the wisdom that you had from your life experience, but they probably don't need the added stress of, oh, my parents think I need to be trying harder in school even though I'm already giving this my best, or my parents, you know, want me to stay in the specific major and I want to switch out. That's not probably what they need as much as just kind of your support.
My parents did come to campus to visit me, like showing them around. It like made me feel really proud of being like at the university. My parents actually went to UT, so it was kind of cool, like showing them like, oh, this is where I hang out. And then they would be like, oh, well, I remember like this building, and we'd go there and they would show me like where they used to hang out and things like that. So it's also nice, like when parents like do come to campus, like being able to show them like your community and like being proud of like being a student at the University of Texas.